Welcome everyone on a Friday. Once again, a week on from last Friday, Conan Doherty here and Conor McKeown here. Indo Sport Podcast at independent.ie is where you can send your emails. The YouTube page, it's very easy. All you have to do is search Indo Sport Podcast, all one word, and it will bring you to us. And if you're just listening on podcast, which is fine by us, then hit the follow button. That's very helpful. We've had no emails in the last few days.
What is going on?
I don't know if we're either finished or it's the weather.
Yeah. Well, luckily the weather's about to turn really bad, so expect an influx.
This reminds me of the days I used to work in judo, and you'd be constantly looking at the page analytics, and you come up with every sort of excuse for why the page views were down. Like, it must be the weather was a big one.
Yeah.
The weather, what can you do?
It's a sort of a strange week, you know, like the rugby fraternity, like they've had the explosion of Leinster talk, and now it's a little early to email in with their what is the Lions all about stuff. That'll come. Football, I was surprised there were no angry Manchester United fans. Maybe they're not just not bothered. Yeah, what's left to say? And then GAA ticking along. People have got the rules stuff out of their system. We're now kind of in the positioning stage. I don't know, or maybe it's the weather. I don't know.
Yeah. Some big things have finished, and other big things are only just getting ready for the final gallop, I think.
And the weather.
I'm going to stop saying things on this podcast from now on, because last week, after Joe so rudely derided my marking for the weekend in Castlebar.
Is that what you call it in the paper biz? Your marking?
My marking, yeah.
What game you're covering?
Yeah, what's your marking, yeah.
You're posting?
Okay. Good to get the lingo.
I got to the gate in Castlebar, and I had to show my press pass to go for parking behind the ground. And your man goes, "Oh, I heard you didn't want to come down."
No, that was about Cavan, not Mayo, you said. It was about Cavan I was deriding.
Yeah. So I need to be careful about the things I say about these.
Yeah. No, we did have emails in from Cavan people to say, well, what do you got to say for yourself now? Which we read out. The week that was on the show, if you're flicking back through anything, Mossy Quinn, the new Shelburne CEO, was in studio yesterday. We had Miguel and Damien Delaney talking all things Europa League. Very good, I would say. Very good. Damien Delaney in fine form. He especially, he got into it. He felt it when he was talking about what he would do with Garnacho and his brother for talking publicly about I should have been playing, thrown at the bus, etc. And I was like, get him against the wall. And he was back in the dressing room for 30 seconds. It's like, and tell your brother, keep out of it. Ian Madigan returned. We talked Leinster. He hadn't really been here when Leinster imploded, and so he gave great analysis of what he thinks has happened there. And then the Sevens fallout sort of continues. You know, David Nucifora has come out very strongly since we talked during the week and called the whole thing a shambles, and it's rumbling on. I mean, I don't think the RFU are going to change their decision, but they're getting more blowback than they might have anticipated. Tomas O'Shea made his analysis debut. He'll be with us for the rest of the year. We had bits and bobs talking largely Gary Lineker, Damien Duff. We had hurling, Eddie Brennan, Michael Verney. And it feels like a long time ago now on Monday. But Paul McGinley was talking about Scotty Scheffler at the USPGA. Feels about 3 weeks ago.
I enjoyed Paul McGinley talking about it. And I mean, it's a small detour, but the post Rory kind of afterglow has taken a sharp kind of dark turn since the PGA, just by dint of how brilliant Scheffler was. And after a performance like that, I know a lot of the analytics and the statistics and all the rest of it tend to ruin the magic. But, you know, when you can break down why a guy is that good, and I saw recently that somebody highlighted that he's now the 9th best putter on tour. And the whole thing about Scotty Scheffler was that he was the best player of all time who was an average putter. That's all he was. He was no better than average. He was no worse than average. But if he's getting up into the top 10 for putting statistics on tour, it's going to be a long season for everyone else.
Yeah. And in retrospect, he was still frantically trying to sharpen up for the Masters and just didn't get there in time. And so Rory took his opportunity brilliantly. But that is a part of the story. He was, injury early in the season and just wasn't fully himself.
Yeah, because I remember when Pádraig Harrington was on here the Monday after the Masters, and he was talking about when he'd met Rory at whatever tournament it was, and he said that he knew that with Xander Schauffele and Scotty Scheffler not 100% that he was going to Augusta. He was the man, and Rory would be instinctive enough to kind of know that, you know, I'm the man going in here. I'm on top of my game. I'm the fella who's in form. And when you win the Masters, you know, you're still the man going into the next major, but there's no doubt who the man is going to Oakmont.
So this weekend, it's just like wall-to-wall stuff, you know. League of Ireland tonight, Rovers Derry of significance, first v second. We have 9 Sam Maguire / Lee McCarthy matches amongst many other GA matches across the weekend. Katie McCabe and Arsenal are in the Champions League final in Lisbon against Barcelona. Barcelona going for the three-peat. They've won 3 of the last 4. Premier League playoff games, Sunderland, Sheffield United on Saturday. You know, it's always kind of a thing to check. How much is this game worth these days?
Yeah.
Jeez. So with the new TV deal, it is worth a minimum, if they stink the joint out next year and finish bottom in the Premier League, 220 million sterling more than they would have otherwise.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that something?
But it's like, I know those calculations are all a bit, you know.
No, this is just factual. This is just factual.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that, so if all of a sudden you win that game and it's worth 220 million to you, so Ipswich spent what trying to stay in the division? Like, that money is gone as soon as you've earned it.
Oh, yeah, but a great opportunity for them the following season to get promoted again.
Yeah.
Yeah. 8 years since Sunderland were in the Premier League. Final round of Premier League games Sunday, and then look, it just goes on and on. French Open tennis starting, Giro d'Italia, Champions Cup final on Saturday, etc. What is your marking, by the way, this weekend?
Dublin Galway, Parnell Park on Sunday. Sort of a de facto.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Semi-final, really.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Leinster, yeah.
And there's been always a bit of fire in that game, and I'd imagine there will be a small bit more this weekend because the whole kind of Micheál Donoghue thing.
Mm-hmm.
There's Micheál Donoghue's last game as Galway manager the first time was when they were beaten in Parnell Park as All-Ireland champions, and the only result that could knock them out of the championship that time was Dublin beating Galway and Kilkenny and Wexford to draw at the same time, which did happen. And then obviously last year he was Dublin manager and was in the very awkward position of knocking Galway out of the championship on the day when David Burke, his All-Ireland winning captain, was sent off. So there's all kinds of little subplots that'll make this one pretty interesting. But it's hard to get a grip on Galway. You know, like at their best, they're very, very good. But it's hard to know whether they're quite there yet.
Do you like Parnell Park?
I have a lot of affection for it in the same way as one might have a lot of affection for, you know, their kind of rundown local greasy spoon or something like that. There was a time there when the All-Ireland finals used to go on to September and they had to play off the club championships almost as a blitz. And it was those kind of, just as the evenings were darkening around, you know, October. And Dublin had have maybe won an All-Ireland or something, and you go along and there'd be these big games like Ballymun and Vincent's, you know, James McCarthy coming up against Dermot Connolly, and there were some great games, and it makes for a great atmosphere when it's full. But like objectively, it's not a resplendent sort of cathedral for GAA.
Wonderfully open, by the way. When I had my daughter a couple of years ago, and like endless walks where she's strapped to me, I'd be in the area and I'd go for a walk, and first like day I'd be like, can I just go in here? And it seems like I can, and I'm just walking up and down the pitch out of, you know, just it's interesting thing to do, nice thing to do. And no one ever told me to get off. Did it multiple times.
Yeah, well, it is where Dublin GA's office is. You know, that's where.
But I was just surprised. I was like, am I allowed on here?
You probably weren't.
Well,
there's nobody working to tell you not to.
Okay.
Yeah.
You were the person who spilled the thing on the pitch, was it?
Oh, yeah. Has that been sorted out?
I don't know. I'll find out on Sunday.
That was just vandalism, wasn't it?
I think so, yeah.
But there is just quickly a bit of magic in Parnell Park that is missing. I remember during lockdown, you remember all the old games were on, we were watching these old All-Ireland finals, and I ended up going down this rabbit hole and watching an O'Byrne Cup final in Dublin. We're playing Longford in Parnell Park, and Jason Sherlock scored 2 goals.
That was one of the
in injury time to win, and the Dublin crowd were going insane. It was one of Phil McMahon's, I think it was his first competition, the O'Byrne Cup in 08, and there was a pitch invasion afterwards because he got the 2 late goals. And I remember looking at it being like, I bet you they miss a bit of that as well, though. Like, we got the 2 goals, we beat Longford, and now we're running onto the pitch because we won the O'Byrne Cup. That was only 08.
They'll be back there soon.
It's a bit of a cauldron, and it doesn't get great reviews from visiting teams, particularly in hurling. The pitch is quite tight. I remember Nicky English said not so long ago that he didn't think it was suitable for championship hurling, that the pitch was actually, the dimensions were just too small. And it's been a bit of a topic of debate for the Dublin hurlers. Like Pat Gilroy wanted to play all of Dublin's games in Croker because that's essentially where the big trophies are won.
Dublin's home stadium, of course.
Dublin's home stadium, as we know. And whereas I think the current thinking is, look, we play best in Parnell Park and we want to get results, so that's where we're going to play the game.
Okay.
So I think it is worth a couple of points to them. And on the rare occasions that the hurlers get a big crowd in, and I expect there will be a big crowd on Sunday, it is very fiery. Like it's the people are on top of the pitch, and it does generate a really, really good atmosphere. When it's full.
It does. Thankfully, everybody not running around with their hair on fire today, because special congress in Croke Park last night in the Cusack Stand was held. The Camogie Association got together and said, we need to talk about this, everyone. But it was all very quick and straightforward. 98% of delegates voted in favour of giving players the choice of shorts or skorts. And so there are 94,000 playing members across the country now can wear shorts if they so please. The 2%, don't know.
That would be a good interview. Or is that people who knew what way the wind was blowing? You like a Twitter poll? It's like, I'll just do this one.
Yeah, well, I don't know. So that one has been put to bed. That saga is over.
The headlines sort of sum it up, don't they? Where it's like camogie players permitted to wear shorts. That sort of shows you like what we're talking about here. Like it's very straightforward, cut and dry thing, which wasn't, and we're this late into our existence, and it's only being permitted, quote unquote, now.
Yeah, the only thing to say is, I mean, doing the right thing eventually is still doing the right thing. So I think a lot of the heat that the Camogie Association got recently was understandable, but I think in hindsight you could look at it and say, well, it's, we can understand maybe why some of the officers weren't coming out to speak about this in the past, because you would have had a situation where a high-ranking officer was maybe expressing an opinion which was contrary to a rule that had been voted on democratically. So it's like it would have been an unusual position to be put in. So
yeah, but isn't it weird the hush-hush nature around this particular rule? Because if you think about the GAA equivalent, and especially Gaelic football, nobody has anybody coming out and telling you what they think of rules, or what they think should be changed, or what a stupid thing that was implemented in Congress or wasn't implemented in Congress. But with this particular rule in the camogie world, it was like, we don't want to come out contrary to it.
Yeah, maybe. But I mean, having spent the week trying to sort of get hard news out of the GAA and relevant county boards about the Ulster final row, I can attest that when it comes to situations that might be seen as being a little bit delicate when they're in the public domain, they might not be as effusive either.
It's a curious kind of fallout to it, because today or last night when the news came through, it's not like you went, brilliant. Yeah. God, what a great step. That's great. I'm delighted now. You sort of went, well, okay. Welcome to 1978, It's just like, I don't know. What a great step forward for the Camogie Association. It's not a great day. It's just, okay, that's been put to bed and forgotten quickly, I think.
Yeah.
Colin Healy is of interest in the papers today. So Aidan Fitzmaurice was amongst a group of journalists who sat down with him in Dublin this week. He's now the Kerry FC manager. He was appointed earlier this month. So you'll remember this kind of furore emerged in January. On the day, actually, that Carla Ward was being presented to the press, Colin Healy released a statement. In effect, he was very unhappy with the way he was treated. He had been assistant to Eileen Gleeson up until December of last year. And he released a statement in January again when Carla Ward was being unveiled publicly to express, frankly, his disgust at the way he'd been treated. The short version again was that he had been offered a 2-year contract as Cove Ramblers manager in November last year, October, November last year. And this would have obviously allowed him to work full-time but be close to home. And people, I'm sure, know Colin Healy's wife, desperately sad, passed away last year. He has 2 children. He needs to be at home. He wants to be at home. And so he went to Mark Canham and told them about the offer. So, do I have a future with the FAI? Because actually, the possibility of a job at Cove where I'll be near my children and I can stay at home and keep some kind of stability for the family is obviously very enticing right now. And he says Mark Canham gave him assurances that his contract with the FAI would be renewed. So he allowed the Cove Ramblers job to drift. And then he was promptly sacked. And he talks a little bit more detail even about how that all happened. So they lost the game to Wales. And I know Mark Canham has said, listen, we didn't give any assurances that Eileen Gleeson or Colin Healy would keep their jobs. The review was always going to happen after the playoff game. But Healy is adamant that wasn't the assurance he was given. And so he talked about the sacking. So it was on December 11th, he said. He got a phone call from Mark Canham. And this, he'd been told after the Wales game, look, a review is about to happen. And so he waits for the outcome of the review, and this happens. And then he gets the phone call from Canham. We're not renewing your contract. And so Healy says, I was the assistant of the national team. This is Healy speaking this week. I was the assistant of the national team. Would you not at least bring me up to Dublin and sit down to have a conversation? When I was the manager with Cork City, when you're releasing players, you sit down with them and you give them that respect. You have that conversation. You let them have their say and you have your say. You show respect, don't you? A 4-minute phone call thanking me for my service. And he goes on in the same vein to talk about, the respect he felt he had showed the FAI when his wife died. He said, I didn't have to go back. I could have stayed off the whole year and said, I'm not ready to go back, but I went back. I went back for the players, for the staff. I went back for myself. I don't think the FAI showed too much respect for any of that. And then he says that Mark Canham, on that same phone call, told him the board had made the decision. And it was only when he spoke to Eileen Gleeson after that, she told him that actually Canham had recommended to the board that they make this decision. So Canham later admitted he had made that recommendation, but Healy said, based on his phone call with Canham, he'd been given the impression that the board made the decision without Canham's recommendation. So again, just a little bit not good. Following day, and this is all, we touched on this already, Healy received a message from the CEO, David Carell, thanking him for his service and expressing a wish that he could have continued with the FAI. Healy's impression that Carell believed Healy had walked away from the job. And Carell has subsequently said, no, there's a misinterpretation. And Healy talked about that, saying, they say I misinterpreted what they said. I didn't like that, obviously. It was on the television. Everybody saw that. What was said in the text, they said it was a football decision that I wasn't given the contract. Why did the CEO in his text say he was hoping for me to continue? I find that strange. Asked if Canham and Carell were telling the truth at that press conference in January, Healy said no. He was asked if he had faith in David Carell as FAI CEO, and he said, that's a hard question. I won't answer that one. In doing so, answered that one. As we know, Mark Canham's leaving. So, it's just a little bit more meat in the bone. He hasn't really spoken to the two men since their press conference. He has been in touch, or they've been in touch with him, the FAI's People and Culture Director, Aoife Rafferty. So I don't really know what they have to say to each other or what they're working out. But whatever bad taste was in his mouth is still there this week when speaking to journalists. So it's just another thumbs up to the FAI from another respected voice in Irish football, really.
When you put together the sequence of events recently in the FAI with the number of departures and these kind of things, it would be lovely just to know which precipitated which and which was the fallout from the other. And, for an organisation whose CEO, now departed CEO, was up in front of the Public Accounts Committee recently, 2 years ago, for it to still be kind of shambling through all these very big and weighty decisions and drawing attention to itself for all the wrong reasons, it's extraordinary, really. I don't know what more to say about the FAI that hasn't been kind of said already, but fair play, I think, to Colin Healy for actually coming out and explaining the situation in his own, as he experiences it himself, because I'm sure the easiest thing to do would be to throw your eyes up to heaven and say, look, there was misunderstanding or blah, 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 but he obviously feels wronged, and he used the word disrespect an awful lot. Yeah. And I think it's only right that he had a say in the way that he did.
Because some part of me does, you have to be fair, and we have to take a step back, does slightly question, would Mark Canham before the playoff against Wales have said, no matter what happens, you're definitely staying on, don't take this Cove Ramblers job? And I go, because they could lose 20-0 and you sort of have to...
There was a detail, wasn't it, where Healy said, bar us being hammered, I will recommend you to the board.
Bar us being hammered.
Yeah.
Right.
That's apparently what Healy had said that Canham had said.
Yeah. And they weren't hammered. I mean, it was
3-2
aggregate. Yeah. It's just that Healy is so adamant he's been misled here. And he's not somebody who has a track record in the game of falling out with people or seeking publicity. So I'm inclined to give him the benefit of the doubt. He's experienced. And if he said, I went to them and I said, Cove Ramblers job, what kind of assurance can you give me? I'm inclined to think if he felt the assurance from Canham was an assurance, then I'd believe him.
Yeah, like I saw Aidan Fitzmaurice, who obviously knows far more about the situation than I do and the people involved, describe Healy as one of the most I don't know, did he say secretive or just like not somebody who naturally attracts media attention that he's ever come across. So from to be this strident about it would suggest that he feels very, very deeply that his side of the that his version of events is accurate.
And like whatever happened before, which is obviously the main issue, it's afterwards, Canham saying to him that the board, sort of making it out that the board basically overruled me. There's a slipperiness to that. Like,
There is, I know. That detail struck me as well. And then he finds out from Eileen Gleeson afterwards, no, Canham recommended you got the sack. He's like, I just had a 4-minute phone call from him. He's like, the board have made this
exactly.
decision.
It's out of my hands,
I know.
Colin, if it was me. And it is you. Like, this is the guy who's changed his own position and title within the FAI because it looks good on his CV. Like, changed it to Chief Football Officer. If you abbreviate that, what is it? CFO. That'd be nice for the next job.
I think by rights that 4-minute phone call has to start with, listen, Colin, I'm sorry, I have to do my job. I have made the recommendation.
Yeah.
And here's why I've made it. Not, geez, this board, I don't know what they're at.
And Canham,
Nothing to do with me.
Canham has played a bit of football. Like,
Yeah.
he played with Colchester, like 6 games or whatever. But he would have had those conversations where somebody would have sat down to him and said, look, it's not working out, we're going to move you on.
Yeah.
Like that's the respect that Conor's talking about. And this is a guy, not just that was in this assistant manager job, but he's played, he's coached underage, he's travelled all around with Ireland, he's putting his own life on hold for this. And to not even just bring him up and say, look, we're going to go in our direction. I know I said this if I did, but I've changed my mind now, and we want to actually go with Carrick.
Yeah, and final thought on it all. So, like, I've no doubt whose side the public are on here, not least given what went on in Colin Healy's private life over the last year. But also, the players were effusive in their praise for his abilities as a coach. So, I don't think it would have been beyond the bounds if the FAI, whatever their feelings on Eileen Gleeson's job, if they'd gone to Carla Ward and say, listen, we have an assistant coach here. He's worked with the players the last couple of years. They really like him. We really rate him. He's a good guy. Will you meet him for a coffee and see if you want him as part of your staff? I suspect there's a fair good chance she might have.
Yeah.
But she said that was never put to her. So every time Carla Ward does it for the first 3 months of her tenure, like the Colin Healy thing blew up. So I'd say she's wondering what's going on here.
And that's it. Like, the fact that Mark Canham is then leaving his job 4 months after this decision as well seems particularly cold as well.
Yeah. Just to mention, the Manchester United fallout continues. It's just relentless at the moment. A small point. This isn't really the key point, but Copper fastening of their status. Thomas Tuchel named an England squad today. Not a single Manchester United player in the squad. I meant to check. What, last time that would have happened? Probably 6 months ago. But I mean, before,
Yeah, and it's just the fact that you had Mainu was supposed to be, the next big thing. Still could be.
Yeah.
Luke Shaw had obviously been a mainstay even when he's injured. It's like, well, we don't have a left back. Let's get Luke Shaw back in. Harry Maguire, obviously a mainstay. And much maligned Marcus Rashford.
Yeah. Well, today around Old Trafford, Carrington, 200 staff are going to find out that they're sacked. So, that's the latest there. Brutal round of cost cutting. So that's what's going on all afternoon. And there's all sorts of stories, like their longest ever serving employee, Marie Marin, was told she's at risk of redundancy. Been at United 47 years. All of these things going on.
Well, they clearly know how to play the game because it was less than 12 hours, maybe after the result in the Europa League final, that the Guardian were reporting that Ruben Amorim would have £100 million to spend in the transfer market. It was remarkably specific, and it said, stated in it, that this was without having to make sales, and it was attributing this sudden windfall to the job cuts. So clearly they're at the stage now where they're trying to kind of spin their own yarns and trying to make what are very, very brutal cuts to people's livelihoods into some sort of, good news story for the betterment. They know what hits fans. What hits fans? What do fans talk about? They just talk about money and transfers and new players endlessly. And of course, at a club that are struggling and floundering to the extent that they are, Man United fans are going to talk about it more. And as much as we kind of care on the global scale, how much do the fans, in Tokyo or Los Angeles care about the people who are going to lose their jobs in Carrington or Old Trafford, compared to how much do they want them to sign Liam Delap or whatever it is. So
Yeah, this 200 seconds can get you 2 players in the next transfer market.
Yeah, like 100 million.
Yeah.
Who are they going to buy?
yeah, what are you going to buy with that?
And the,
1.5 decent players.
But it's funny because you're right. The fans don't seem to care as much about that stuff. But what they do care about is optics and, like, say, the stadium. People love saying the stadium's falling apart. We look like a joke club. This is a human extension of the stadium.
Yeah.
Like this is your club. This is the operation of the club, and it's people losing their livelihood. And again, it's the optics. It's the feeling then around Manchester United, which just it isn't thriving at the minute.
No.
Joe, you're heroically going into the field, are you?
Yeah. I'm going on Sunday.
Wow, to watch Aston Villa get into the Champions League.
Well, probably. Probably. Yeah.
You're going to look at the roof and...
Well, I don't know what am I? Am I a Laps United fan? There's a residual, you just can't fully
Recovering?
shake it. Yes, my dad's a United fan. That's how it kind of happens. So me and brother, dad are going to go over. Well, brother's in London. He's going to come up. It's as much as I can just have a weekend away. Like we're going Saturday. We're not doing that thing. It's a tough gig. That
The one day.
4 a.m. ferry
Oh God.
home at stupid o'clock. Like you're kind of that airport sickness all day. It's gross. It's the worst. So I said we'll go Saturday at a nice 10:30. We'll get lunch. We're actually, do you know what? I just booked it actually. This is how kind of, so I'm a United fan, but I'm a bit more, I'm agnostic in many ways. We're doing, because Old Trafford was sold out, we're doing an Etihad Stadium tour on the Saturday.
Oh wow. So you're
As part of our Man United weekend.
yeah, so you're doing a Manchester weekend.
Yeah,
And the United game happens to be part of that.
In Manchester. So we're going to go and sit in the dugout where Pep sits and see that glass tunnel on the Saturday.
Oh, yeah.
We'll get some food, relax, and then we'll go to the game on.
And you'll see the proper atmosphere as well, because there'll be loads of empty seats when you go there.
Hey. And I just saw there's a big protest planned, by the way, for Sunday at Old Trafford.
Oh, lovely.
Because I think the job cuts, I know what you're saying, like 100 million war chest way, but I think more than most fans, even globally, United fans are clued into the crumbling empire, and the job cuts are, they've become big news. And there's the 1958 fans group I saw. They're calling on all supporters to meet at the top of Sir Matt Busby Way, Chester Road, 3 o'clock, an hour before kickoff, to march to the stadium forecourt. We march. To make it clear, we want the Glazers out of our club. So I don't know, I might go along to that.
We want Glazers out.
Yeah, I do all that
You're
stuff.
walking down with a placard.
Are you going to have your yellow and green jersey with the...
The Newton Heath?
Yeah.
And I'll be like, "Gee, this is great. Do you know, by the way, I did the Etihad tour yesterday. Very good.
What a great city.
You should go along. It's a better stadium than this one. Yeah, Glazers. But yeah, no, if I don't see, like, blocked toilets and holes in the roof and rats everywhere, I'll almost be disappointed, because I've just heard so many bad things about Old Trafford. The last time I was there, it's staggering. I couldn't, if you'd said to me, when were you last there, I might have said, I don't know, 10 years ago. The last time I was there, certainly with my dad, was 20 years ago. It just doesn't feel 20. But I was just thinking about it this week for obvious reasons, and it was the night they played Villarreal in the Champions League, and they drew 0-0. So it was 2005, and it would have been kind of winter time, October, November. And it was a really interesting night, because this was a week on from Roy Keane having been kicked out of the club, and George Best was effectively on his deathbed. So it was gloomy and heavy, and they only drew 0-0, and in effect they did not qualify for the knockout stages of the Champions League. Jose Mourinho and Chelsea were really the dominant side. And all around me, as he was walking down towards the Stretford end, towards the tunnel, Sir Alex Ferguson, was booed by a hearable quotient. And all around me, like a lot of Ireland people doing it. And I always remember Ferguson, even though we were high up, he slowed his pace down and he glared up at us. Glared up. Quite rightly so, you know what I mean? So now I go back to boo them off against Aston Villa on Sunday. Basically, every time I turn out, I'm like the Grim Reaper.
You did well to pick the only 2 points in the last 20 years when Manchester United were that.
Sorry, I'd forgotten. One of the time I was there, I saw them lose to Portsmouth in the FA Cup the year Portsmouth won the FA Cup. Basically, anytime I turn up, something really bad happens.
Well, what happens, because the following 3 seasons, it was amazing, 6, 7, 8. Like, glory
I
years.
kickstarted them.
Yeah.
I was that they needed, you know?
This could be it now.
We better get our shit together before Joe comes back.
Yeah. I seem to signal rock bottom. So I presume when Villa win, I'm going to go for 3-1. I'm going to go for 2 or 3-1.
Probably have 10 minutes put aside for the Champions League playoff
Yeah.
run.
I look forward to the reception they receive on their lap of appreciation.
I spend very little time thinking about Manchester United, but now that you've kind of conjured the image of it, I can just, like, you know, those kind of classic scenes of the irate fans, you know, with steam coming out of their ears and veins popping.
Yeah.
I see United being very post that, just a lot of people slumped around going,
agree.
oh, I can't believe this shit is still going on.
There's no passion left. It's a dead marriage.
Yeah, it's
Like, I don't even hate you anymore.
yeah, it's just like utterly. It's like, yeah, they've run us into the ground. They've taken all the money. The team are shit. The manager wants out.
Yeah.
The whole thing is a fiasco.
Because there's no point getting angry. You protest against Glazers, they're not going anywhere. Scream and rant at the manager, they get a new one in. It's the same old story. There's nothing left to fight for. It's just so empty, dead, crumbled. 200 people losing their jobs today. Like, what a weekend to go over.
I can understand the kind of shout and Freude from, not necessarily. I know the Liverpool Man United thing. I find that very tedious. All the Twitter slagging and all that nonsense between Irish fans of one or the other. But I can understand people who love the League of Ireland, or I can understand people who love the GAA, particularly of my age. Because when I was in school and stuff like that, like Manchester United was the thing that everybody talked about. Like, as a sporting topic, it was a behemoth between Roy Keane and win the Champions League and everything else. It was just there was such a big sort of cultural force in Ireland around that time. And to see them in the state that they're in at the moment, I say a lot of people are secretly enjoying it. Not secretly, they're just enjoying it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. They're always grim, though.
So enjoy your trip.
Yeah, no, listen, but you see, the trip's not about Manchester
Etihad.
United, Aston Villa. Like, that'll be the low point.
I want to see you.
We just have to get through that 90 minutes.
I want to see you on television with your top off, like the Newcastle fans, and swinging the.
Would you get? It's hard because of the atmosphere and trajectory at the minute. Would you find yourself, go on, let's go? You know,
At the game?
corner or something.
I don't know. I mean, there's not much at stake. Like,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, maybe it was a bigger game.
Yeah.
But like, it's hard to really kind of.
Let's finish.
Come on!
Let's finish the season on a high.
Yeah.
Like,
Secure 16th.
can you imagine how uninterested the players are in this game and how, you know, bad the starting team they're going to name is? Like, I'm going to watch a bunch of academy kids here.
Can you guarantee me that? Because I need, like, this is the biggest banana skin that ever was.
I can almost guarantee you. Yeah, it's just if it was a team that wasn't so toxic, then you would say there's going to be a response here. But I think this team are now so dead inside. I'd say you have a hell of a chance of 3 points and a grand afternoon. A comfortable last 20 minutes for you, Conan.
I can't see it. Villa's record at Old Trafford is fabled anyway, and it's awful. But
Yeah, but West Ham hadn't won in like 8 games and hadn't won at United in, was it 20 years?
Yeah.
They sailed through with a 2-0 win. God, that was easy.
I'm just worried Chelsea will drop, because obviously 5 teams are going for the last 3 Champions League places. Chelsea, City, and Newcastle. One of them just have to drop points, and Villa win, and they get through. They only
that
need
it?
one. Forest need 2 teams.
Like, to be fair, if you're not one of the 18 good enough teams to get in the Champions League this year from the English League, you don't really deserve it. You know, you can't really say, God.
And if you can't beat United at Old Trafford, which I think is going to happen, I think Chelsea will drop points at Forest, and Villa will.
I'd still be interested to find out next week what it was like, just from the point of view that, like, I don't know what it is about people who are sports fans, but there's something eternally magic about stadiums. Like, I even going to London sometimes, when you fly over, you see Stamford Bridge, and you used to see Highbury as well. There's some sort of weird buzz that you get from recognising those kind of places and what they mean. And like Old Trafford, whatever anybody says, no matter how shit the team is, no matter how sort of disparate the people in the crowd are from, you know, a core support, or no matter how zombified the overall thing is, no matter how leaky the roof is, it's one of the great sporting cathedrals. Do you know what I mean? And the stuff that has happened there will never not like be. It'll never be erased.
Ghost of like a chiseled Roy Keane.
There has to be some magic somewhere there. Like, there's no way you can walk into it and just go, "Oh, this kip."
It is lovely. Like, but any kip is great. You know, like, it's a bit like when you go to New York or something, and you're like, this is just like a movie, you know. And so when you're in London and you see these stadiums, it's like, God, it's real. It's not just a TV construct.
Sure, look at Conor. He didn't want to go to Castle Bar.
He's blown away by the place. When we went down to Langton's to talk to Eddie Brennan and Michael Verney and John Milan, and I drove by
Nolan Park.
UPMC Nolan Park.
Yeah.
Oh,
But I was like, you know, I was kind of craning my neck out the window, going, look at it. I caught a glimpse of the pitch. That's why I'm going to the Etihad. They're magical places, stadiums. They're feats of
But I find
architectural miracle.
find all new stadiums to be lacking in that. Do you know what I mean? Like the newness and the shininess. It's almost like they've eroded away the history and whatever else. Like if Dublin were to build, for instance, speaking about Parnell Park as we were earlier on, say they were to build a 25, and for some reason when these things are reported, everybody calls them purpose-built stadiums as opposed to like built without a purpose.
It's a non-purpose built.
But like if they were to build a 25,000 seater stadium out in the Spa Well where they own land, like it would be great, but it would be shit. Do you know what I mean? Like
is that just because it's just not in 20 years would it become great because history would have built up, or is there something about the modern ones that's a bit shit?
Yeah, well, it wouldn't feel like going to the same. It wouldn't feel like going to the same entity, if you know what I mean.
No, there is a spirituality to the places and the ghosts of past players and all that stuff. Yeah, it's true. I was going to say something. That's gone. Yeah, I do love stadiums, though. I suspect the Etihad will be completely dull, feel homogenous. Like that's how it all looks. I'm in a curious way. I want to report back and go, yeah, it's every bit as forgettable.
Yeah,
like impressive. Wow, 60,000 people. Architecturally, this looks very shiny. But I suspect it's going to be incredibly forgettable and soulless.
Yeah,
somehow.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Remember last time
Villa Park. Oof,
remember last time we went to the.
There you go.
Last time we went to the Now camp and like it's disgusting.
The what?
What?
Camp Now.
The new. New camp.
I had the second time it said now again.
New. Camp New. Camp Now.
The last time I went to Barcelona stadium. From the outside, it's an absolute it's terrible looking. Like it was before they knocked it down and started to rebuild it. It was kind of decrepit, but inside it, and it's just an atmosphere. Like it's an atmosphere. Like even listening to Mossy Quinn here the other day. Like I was at Tolka for their first game against Derry City, and there's something about walking down. Now it was kind of evening time on a Friday night, but there was something about walking down Richmond Road, because like Drumcondra is a proper little kind of a village nearly like in the Ouse, and people were going towards it and you could see the lights, and again like it looks, one of the roofs looks like like a kind of a aluminium cow shed or something like that, but it's atmospheric. And I don't just mean atmospheric from the point of view of the atmosphere that the people generate. The place itself is just naturally atmospheric.
Well, it's tucked in around houses and that residential thing, because it's funny when I was asking Mossy yesterday, like in an ideal world would you just bulldoze it and build a Tala Stadium type thing? And even as I said it, I thought, God, don't do that. Don't fully lose the cow shed, the feel of the place. Yeah, it's an interesting thing, stadiums.
Even like I was in Páirc Uí Chaoimh for that game against Tipperary, and granted it wasn't a good atmosphere because of how the game panned out. But Páirc Uí Chaoimh used to be one of the like unmerciful kip, like in terms of like almost unsafe. It was so rickety and bockety and everything else. But when it was full, it was nearly like being on an unsafe roller coaster. It was thrilling in a way that nearly made you kind of afraid.
And the new one?
No, not so much.
I don't.
It looks lovely and everything else, but
it's too comfortable.
You can see the perfect little squares where the perfect amount of people are all at right. Like it's there's something very orderly and comfortable about it, but it's just not the same atmosphere.
I agree. Not to offend anyone involved with it, but I was down there for the Munster Springboks game. And like you get, TV, like what a privilege. You get to like stand pitch side. The floodlights are on, and like I was like, this just doesn't have something.
You don't need to be comfortable. Like you go into the stadium for a different reason. Like you're not there to unwind and just relax into the place. Like you sort of accept that it's going to be a bit rough around the edges.
It's hard though, because like for people with disabilities and younger people, elder people, like you want it to be you probably do want it to be a comfortable experience. I think there is a kind of there's a certain je ne sais quoi here that some stadiums have and others don't.
X factor. Yeah, because I always think as well, when clubs build their new pitch or their new clubhouse, it's like, why say they make the away dressing room exactly the same as the home dressing room? It's like, why would you do that? Like you've given this away team coming up now just this comfort, and you come in, there's loads of space, it looks great, just relax yourself in there instead of just making the away dressing room a kip for them.
Yeah, I think the Aviva has had that leveled at it. Like Lansdowne Road used to be tough place to go.
Yeah, exactly.
Incredibly pleasant place to come and beat the Republic of Ireland at. I think that's kind of it. So Oh yeah, you're Parnell Park, and I'm at Old Trafford. My marking's Old Trafford.
You're marking us.
We were doing the 15-minute Derry Armagh preview now. They were.
Yeah, we're just getting onto it.
Yeah.
What's the highlight? Donegal, Tyrone,
Yeah,
Armagh, Derry.
Yeah. Ambush.
Oh, Limerick, Clare, Cork, Waterford. In the hurling, that's kind of
Well, the two games on Sunday that are big are the Cork Waterford and Dublin Galway, insofar as
Yeah.
they're the only two with any at stake.
A lot of people sensing Cork are in for not even an ambush here, like just something's brewing. They're rattled.
Well, I suppose it comes from the idea that their whole kind of sort of sense of themselves was exploded by Limerick last week. You know, that the Cork team had suddenly become Limerick, and then Limerick showed them actually who Limerick really were. So I don't know how you recover from that. I'm sure the Cork have it in them to put it aside, but it was so comprehensive, and you do wonder and you're just always vulnerable after a loss. A little bit like Armagh in this game against Derry that we're going to get so deep into now. Like that's a deep, they were so close to beating Donegal. So like on a material level, on a logical level, you could say, look, we lost by a point in extra time to one of the best teams in the country. It's not going to take a whole lot for us to tip it over. But on another, you just be so desperate to win an Ulster title that there has to be some sort of, energy deficit just for a little while. So that's why games like this, Armagh against Derry, Cork against Waterford, you'd always be keeping an eye out for it. That the favourite isn't going to do exactly what the form would tell them.
Yeah. All right, fellas, enjoy your weekends.
Enjoy yours, Joe.
Yeah. Indo Sport Podcast at independent.ie for your emails.
We need them.
Please. And we'll reconvene on Monday. I think this studio is out of commission on Monday.
That's going to lose its magic if we make it.
Yeah, it's
modern.
going to be all shiny and soulless, unlike now. So I think actually we'll be struggling on Monday to record much. I think we're actually just going to record bits and bobs on the roof.
Wow.
Oh, nice. That's soulful. And then we'll take the rest of the week as it comes. So that's the plan next week. We will talk to you then. All right. Cheers.